We're really a marketing and sales agency. We just happen to install bathrooms.
So rather than having to start from square one, rather we're having a lot of that legwork done for us.
Make more revenue without having to add in additional costs.
This kind of technology is here to stay, and the big portion is going to be who is able to leverage this in a way that drives revenue.
All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Victorson, CEO of Channel Automation. We're here at another ChowPod podcast, and we're going to go and deep dive into all things about technology, AI, automation. And we are joined here. We're being joined by two industry professionals, superstars, Johnny Toohill and Connor Littleton of Kohler, HomePride Baths. It's based out in Denver, Colorado. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Vic.
All right, cool. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kohler and HomePride Baths?
Sure. So I've been with HomePride since 2020. I started in call center functionalities and operations. And in 2020, that was pre-AI. And so we developed all of our SOPs based off of industry best practices, along with what we found to work best for us. We were always a digital first company, so that's where most of our lead generation happens. And it's really attractive because of how quickly you can get to your leads, right? If they come in through APIs and automations, then we get to speak with them within 5 seconds. And then, through the last few years, with AI being such a large component of marketing and sales really too, we've been exploring different AI functionalities. It started first with just kind of giving ChatGPT our script and saying, hey, can you make this better, right? And seeing what it gave us, or kind of giving ChatGPT all of our different objections, all of our different lead and customer objections on why they wouldn't want to set an appointment. And we would ask AI to give us better rebuttals. And I mean, there's some gold nuggets in there for sure. And there are continual processes that we take to just leverage technology in the fullest extent. Right now, AI is the biggest buzzword, but we also just like to leverage automations and different campaign sequencing and all that really great stuff. And it'll give us two main things, right? The first and most important thing is that customer journey, that customer experience. Making sure we're getting to our customers quickly, not only on that first communication, but also with any follow-up communications that need to happen. And then secondly, it's efficiencies, right? It keeps our overall team smaller, or at least we don't have to add in a person. You can add in automations, and especially AI automations and workflows to keep our efficiencies and our overhead where it's at. And yeah, so I always like to say that HomePride Bath is really a marketing and sales agency. We just happen to install bathrooms. And so any tech or software that's out there within just marketing in general, we take a good look at it and we try to leverage to the fullest extent.
It was this very interesting thing. ChatGPT, it's been around for a while now, not like it's been for 10 years. And I think today, maybe about 80% of, I would say, marketing contact centers still don't necessarily use it. You touched on it, Johnny, for a little bit on hey, I started playing with it and dabbling with it. So, I mean, share with the audiences, how did you end up really using AI and automation? What does it play in terms of your customer journey? And maybe you, Connor, can discuss this too, because obviously you're in charge of that. But either one of you guys, how does that play as an important part of the journey now and in the future? And maybe say what was before, what is now, and then what's coming in the future for your customers.
Yeah. What we are primarily using it for currently is to refine and to save bandwidth for our agents. So for instance, when we make a change to our script, we've made a lot of pretty major changes in our messaging and our alignment of our messaging from the marketing side to the call center side, all the way down to sales and installation. When we want to change our knowledge base, our knowledge tool, and our scripting, that used to be, okay, great, somebody's going to go in and spend about 6 hours changing and fiddling with each and every bit of the script itself, the rebuttals. How are we going to be addressing having all homeowners at a consultation and explaining why that's the best move for the customer? How are we going to address really a new era? I say new era, but the informed consumer. Everybody has access to all of the resources that they're going to be using to make a decision before they're even speaking with somebody in a call center or in person. And so if we're wanting to make those rather large scale changes to the messaging that we're creating across all of our platforms and our channels, it used to be quite a bit of work. And so now what we're able to do is enter exactly what are the parameters we want to be touching on, what is the tone, what is the voice that we want our agents to be using when they're speaking with the customer, and plug it into ChatGPT. It spits out a rebuttal or maybe a new aspect of the script. And then at that point, it's refinement. So rather than having to start from square one, rather we're having a lot of that legwork done for us, and frankly, saving mine, Johnny's, and our agents' time in allowing that automation to do most of the grunt work for us.
Yeah, and I'll give you my 2 cents here as well. So we talked about data earlier. ChatGPT helps develop specific queries for us and specific data analysis expressions, so that before when we were developing all this Power BI stuff without AI, it would take a very long time, right? We're writing this code out by hand. Now we can just develop that directly with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever LLM, and so it allows me to keep these multiple hats without having to focus primarily on one aspect of the business, like for months at a time. So my individual time is super leveraged. There's also the HTML piece of our scripts, right? Connor and I, we could, if we needed to, sit down and write all this HTML for automated scripts that are being presented to our agents when a phone call is connected. But now we just ask ChatGPT to just give us the HTML as we plug it into our dialing platform. Another huge time saver. And then Vic, you asked, what about the future, right? Well, currently, right, we're using LLMs to speak back and forth to our customers using SMS technology. That's where channel automation really comes into play. But the next big thing really is the AI voice, going up that next step where we have an AI voice agent who is integrated within our CRMs and is able to set appointments and update the data. And we don't use that as a replacement for agents, right? Not that there's going to be a whole lot of agents listening to this podcast, but they would need to think of that as, their voice AI agent is their backup, right? They get to lean on that AI voice for, after hours calls, or for when all agents are busy on a phone call. It helps them. It helps the whole company as well as the agents actually service the leads and the customers to the best of our ability. So that's where we're going in the future. Taking one step back, I will also say that early on, we were using voice to text technology for transcripts of our call recordings. That was huge. Once the LLMs became a little bit more sophisticated, we then were using those transcripts to summarize the transcript, as well as to give the agents coaching insights. And the coaching insights and the call summaries, they all get pushed into our CRM and into our notes section, so when like Connor or our sales manager is going through the appointments and trying to figure out which appointments they want to assign to what rep, they can easily just look at a call summary in the notes there. They don't have to listen to a 10-15 minute phone call. They can just skim a couple of bullet points real quick to see what the lead quality is like, or what kind of conversation that they had. But that's where we start playing with, okay, how do we squeeze more profit out of this company, right? What are our blind spots into how we are operating, and what can we do to make more revenue without having to add in additional costs, whether that's labor, software, space, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really excited about.
It sounds like you guys have saved a lot on labor and efficiencies on your side and your agents, which is good for the business. And I'm sure your customers like that, because you're probably passing these along, right, to the consumer. And we've been advocating for voice for about a year now, AI, and we've seen strides. And the things that you guys are talking about, we've just, in the last 6 months, launched intent and sentiment. So there's actual supervisor AIs that can, you don't have to listen to it. You get a transcript, you get a recording, you get to see, like, per lead source, which ones are saying things like, this customer just wanted a free vacation, and that helps. And I think, the younger generation, like you guys, Johnny, you and Connor, pave the way for, and that's why I started with, how did you start? Because there's a lot of people out there maybe looking for jobs, or maybe, thinking about, like, what's in home services. And it sounds like there is room for the younger generation, because it's like in this industry, I think it's always been kind of, there's a lot of, like the legacy generation, or, people see construction remodeling as, they're more of like maybe the boomers or the baby boomers. But really right now I see a lot of young owners, a lot of younger people getting into our space, and they are leveraging technology to really create better efficiencies. And speaking about that, like, how do your salespeople and your customers, like, how are they now? Because I would imagine with salespeople, they don't really get into the technology. Your customers necessarily ask about it, but how have they reacted to the use of automation AI? Like, what's been the feedback for, let's say, sales and customers?
Yeah. So our sales team, they're a little bit older. They're more in line with the demographic of our target audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they have adapted AI technology very well. Use a software that records the in-home consultations. Okay, very much like what we were talking about with our calls. except these are an hour and a half long, right? 2 hours long, sometimes 3 hours long is the recording of that in-home consultation. And they use that for coaching and insights in their own sales team meetings too. So they leverage the voice to text and then the text to summary and coaching insights just as much as we do, if not even further, because they're the revenue generating team. And there's a lot more data there. There's way more conversation, just the length of time itself. If we're running 12 appointments a day and they're all 2 hours long, it's 24 hours of recording right there. It's huge. And then, so the sales team will use it for coaching insights. What did I do wrong here? What could I have said better to get the deal? But then we also use that as, what are our customers asking, right? What can we answer before that consultation? And so we use those recordings and those insights to direct our content, our blog articles and our video articles. And it's been really successful. You'd think it'd be hard for them to adopt that stuff, but if you make it easy for them, to adopt, then they will. So, you have to have really smooth integrations. You have to make sure that they can sign into everything, quickly, and that onboarding process should be smooth. So, so when they open up their app, they just click a button and then there you go. It's already doing its thing. And of course, like we go into the home with an iPad and a briefcase of samples. And the iPad is the main driver of that appointment. They're using sales presentations, price guides, and recording all within that iPad. And that's a pretty standard thing, I would say, with companies similar to us. And so they're already kind of using technology there. So getting them to adapt a next level where, it at first can be scary. You're getting your in-home consultation recorded. But we've seen our NSLI rise. We've seen our sales training be more engaged, because instead of us just sitting around the room talking about what happened, we can actually listen to what happened. And then the AI model can tell you what you did good and what you did wrong.
Connor?
Yeah, absolutely. One area that AI has been helping has also been from the marketing and the call center specifically to sales communication. That I'm sure with a lot of companies, there is a large conversation around how much information is shared with the sales team to ensure that they are fully prepared for this presentation without getting too heavily into their heads. Too much information can sometimes be a killer. And so what this has allowed us to do is not only have our agents typing into the sales notes or the appointment notes what their impression of the conversation is, but we are also able to leverage that LLM model to scrub the transcript to find things like pain points, indications of personality profiles. What exactly happened on that phone call that might not have been flagged by the agent, but that is going to be relevant information. So that way we're able to provide our sales team with more than just, hey, an address and a couple of names of some homeowners and a quick blurb about the project. Rather, we're able to isolate how, based on this individual's communication with our call center agents, their tonality, the words they use, what is going to be the most effective way to communicate with this customer to make sure that we're meeting them on their.
Yeah, and that will also drive who we assign that appointment to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially since you've got those efficiencies, but there's also complexity between departments, right? Marketing, contact center, sales, and then the customer. And it sounds like you guys have done that. So, I mean, for people who you've talked about segmenting, I want to touch on that just a little bit. Like, I know you guys have multiple campaigns, automations. Lots of companies out there, they're kind of treating every customer as like, some customer who purchased and a prospect. You know what I mean? Like, maybe, touch on it, quickly as to like, what have you guys done in automations and how does that affect how you treat each customer now that you have automation and AI? What would your advice be to the other contractors out there who don't have Johnny or a Connor and who are maybe just thinking about AI or automations right now, and why they should consider like, hey, you need to really think about this as a way to segment your audience and how you communicate with people without giving away your secret sauce? So just kind of like, general advice
Sure.
for those contractors.
People want to control the conversation and the way that they communicate with a company. There'll be one person who they'll call into companies and they'll ask you questions. They're not ready to make a decision, right? They're just information finding. But they'll call us, they'll call a couple of competitors. They'll kind of get a gauge on how they're being treated on the phone. There's other people who don't want to talk to you at all, right? Maybe they just want to have a text message conversation back and forth. And maybe they don't even want to answer qualifying questions. They just want somebody to come out there and look at the bathroom. And then there's other people who they don't want to text, they don't want to call, they just want to schedule the appointment, right? They're like, oh, I look at your website, you have free appointment consultations, let me go ahead and schedule one, right? Have somebody come out here. And so I think that that's crucial, especially as we, as we mature this business. As time goes on, the consumer's behavior will change. It is changing. There are people like myself who will do hours of research on a project, whether it's a bathroom model or a car purchase, or maybe booking a vacation. I'll do hours of research, and I won't really talk to a person if I don't have to.
And so what's, for the context, I'll pivot to Connor a little bit. You know, the, what what was the challenges with automation and AI where companies might go, I just want something that's easy and I don't want to touch it, but really it sounds like you and Johnny really had to do a lot of things, and people don't realize, like, that's why they, companies have to hire people like you. But what would be your advice to those owners or VPs or CEOs or even the big companies that go, yeah, we just want to find a solution where it's a set and forget, like, and really it's against everything that we talked about here. Like, you still need humans, but how would you recommend that if you were talking to the contractors, you're thinking about this, but they don't really have a Johnny or a Connor on the contact center level?
Well, at the end of the day, it is some upfront cost, whether that is in dollars in hiring somebody out or in effort and labor to get something like this automation integrated up and running. But at the end of the day, if I were to be speaking to a contractor specifically about this, it really mirrors the struggle that a lot of contractors go to who might not work for a larger scale company and have that sales and marketing supports. So you can either spend your half of your time, 75% of your time selling your job, finding your customers, meeting with them, and then get around to the installing, or you can have somebody else doing all of that legwork for you. So you're able to go in, you're able to have your materials ready at a warehouse, pick them up, install, move on to the next job. And this is a parallel to that. Yes, there sometimes can be a little bit of frustration, sweat, pounding your head against the wall, wondering why this computer program won't work. But at the end of the day, the solution is there in the problem, in that this is a really, really malleable system. So all you have to do is ask the system itself, ask ChatGPT, hey, I want this to happen. How do I do this? We're no longer having to scroll through technical manuals or go through all kinds of all of the little minutia trying to figure out what did I leave out of this source to make this not work. Rather, you plug it into ChatGPT and then you say, hey, I need to do this. How do I do it? Now it follows the flow of a conversation quite a bit more. So even if you don't know exactly where your unknowns are in implementing something like this, you're going to be able to identify them more easily. And at the end of the day, you're going to be developing personally as well, because this kind of technology is here to stay. And the big portion is going to be who is able to leverage this in a way that drives revenue.
Yeah, that's good. And so, final few questions here for you guys, and then we'll wrap up. But, for the people, especially now, we've heard it, Yelp purchased like Hatch, and I know you guys were former Hatch users. And for the people there who have this, and maybe they're thinking of transitioning into something else like channel automation, what has been the difference there, or like what would be your advice to those people? Because it's obviously not just like a replacement. Like, you guys worked hard, there were failures, there were things that you guys needed to go and figure out. But what would be your advice to the people thinking about that move?
My biggest difference that I've seen since coming on with your program has been that we don't have to see how the sausage is made, but it's available to us. So I know that working with your team, with Norbert specifically, it has transitioned from, in the year and a half that we've been with you, from me saying, hey, I need this done. When can you do this? To, hey, I'd like to build out this workflow. You've showed me how. I'm going to replicate this process a little bit. I'm going to need you to hold my hand on this. However, I'm going to be able to take some agency and get this done myself. Now, that is not necessary for every company. Like you said, it's not everybody who enjoys spending 4.5 hours trying to figure out where they went wrong with the technology. However, there is a large support staff and a very, very responsive, to the point where sometimes I'm sending messages at about 4:45 my time, which I know is like 7 his time, and I'll get my response. But it's allowing us, the agency, to make it happen ourselves if we need to, while also providing the support. And if we don't have the time, bandwidth, or skill to do what we accomplish, your team's figuring it out for us.
Great. And for Johnny, for you had a huge success in the fourth quarter. A lot of our industry was affected by the weather, especially out in the Midwest, the East Coast, and you guys had a very successful, I guess, reactivation campaign. Some people might call it rehash, or just kind of recover. Maybe you could just share that one piece, because that's something that a lot of companies don't do, and how you made that successful with Connor and Kohler Home by Home.
Yeah, it's simply just, blast your list, talk to your list again. All right, don't let them drop out of your campaigns after the first week, after the first 2 weeks. Okay, give them a break for sure, right? If they're not responding to you for a while, that's fine. But you can come back to that list, and when you have the right kind of messaging, when you have a reminder that you had interest in a project, and when you have some kind of offer to sweeten the deal, and you make it easy for them to do so, then you find some success there. And even what's going to be the harm in going back 60 to 90 days on that list, and just giving me a quick reminder text, hey, we'd like to still help you out with your bathroom. We have some great, insert your offer here. Click the link below to schedule your discovery call. And then you just let the discovery calls go onto your calendar.
Good. And you guys are providing customers an opportunity to set their appointments on text or on emails, like on a lander, other than just phone calls, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, our agents will follow the SOP, whatever is given to them. And there are people that can schedule a consultation back and forth on text. And sometimes, you'll ask them one of those questions like, hey, who are the other decision makers on this? Right. And then you'll get ghosted. Right. And then our agent will call you, right? Because you don't want to get ghosted, and they're not just going to leave that lead to fall through the cracks, so to speak. So we do try and convert every lead that's in the pipeline, and sometimes that means going out of the channel that you're communicating with them and seeing what's going on. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting topic to get even further than that, right? Letting them self-schedule a discovery call, letting them self-schedule a consultation. I think the one of the next big things that I think was highlighted by Westshore at QR Top 500 this year was, at what point are you going to let them just book the job, right? Where they can just go through your website flows and order that new shower or whatever product you are selling. Turning this home improvement industry into more of an e-commerce related industry is being talked about. It's being looked at, and that is the kind of thing that I would want to do as a consumer in my home. Like, can I just book this job without having to go through all the hoops and whatnot
Yeah.
all the time?
That's interesting. I'd love to invite you and a couple of other people. We're going to have a webinar next month, kind of a roundtable debate as to where that's going to go. They've tried this in Japan with robots, starting with roofing, and people still prefer, as a homeowner, like, if your home is just so personal to you that, yeah, maybe you could say, hey, I want to go remodel it. I want to do this, but I think we're still a bit far away from that. I
You
think
got to be recognized. You have to have authority in the
Yeah.
industry. You can't do that from just a mom and pop organization where nobody knows your name or your brand or what you're doing. You have to have a lot of social proof.
That's right.
You have to be you have to have awareness campaigns. People need to know who you are.
Which
And so that's why it's
yeah.
easier with big brands.
Yeah, which reminds me, you guys need to definitely take advantage of the Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok integrations that you guys have with your subscription. Alan and our team will follow up with you guys, as it reminded me on the social piece. So, we went through a lot today, guys. We'd love to invite you again. If people wanted to ask you guys questions, kind of just like, we get that all the time. Like, people will call me or message us and say, hey, can I get in touch with this guy? He's like such a, expert. Just want to give him a call or something like that. Do you guys have a LinkedIn or Instagram if you want to, share out there? People can reach out to you.
Yeah, I think my LinkedIn is just John Tuhill, and marketing manager at HomePride. Should be pretty easy to find there. I'm not super active on LinkedIn. I do get I get a lot of reach out already of people who want our business. A lot of B2B hustlers out there. But I live in my email, so johnt@homepridebath.com is the best way to get me.
All right, good. How about you, Connor?
Very similar to John. You can find me, Connor Littleton, on LinkedIn, call center manager at HomePride Bath. However, very similar to Johnny, you are likely going to get a fast response through email. It's Connor, CONNOR Littleton, LITTLETON @homepridebath.com.
All right, cool. Well, that's going to be it for us today. Whether you loved or you hated what we talked about, we want to hear from you. Comment and shoot us an email here at Channel Automation, and please consider subscribing. To the podcast. It's growing, so you can get future tips as well as listening into other things that we're talking about. We have a lot of new features this year. From voice AI to AI supervisors to AI that's listening. So expect a lot more of these experts coming into the podcast in the next few months here. And as always, keep the conversions high. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.